All right, Tyler, we're good to start.
Okay. I want to begin by thanking everyone for taking a little bit of time out of their Thursday evenings to come together for our second event in our celebration of A. Craig Baird's arrival to the University of Iowa 100 years ago. Tonight, our program is roughly divided into three parts. I'm going to offer a couple of opening remarks. Then we will allow each debater to share a little bit about themselves, whether that's experiences that they've had debating on this topic or things that debate has helped them to prepare to do. And then we'll end our conversation with a bit of Q&A time so that audience members can ask questions to the debaters, ask questions to Paul and or offer their own experiences about how debate has impacted them. So I want to begin by sharing my screen. Yes. So I went through and let's see, does that seem to be sharing? Yes. So I went through and put together a couple of interesting statistics and pieces of information about the work that the debate team has done this season. So first, I want to celebrate that we were
Tyler,
able
there's a
to.
little box in front of the slides that is disrupting their view.
Uh,
There you are.
okay, perfect. So first, I wanted to celebrate that we were able to send 9 different students to 15 tournaments so far in the 2024-2025 debate season. And altogether, between preliminary debates and elimination debates, our students have participated in 179 rounds of competitive debate. Taking that apart, that means that since the second week of September, our students have debated for 21,480 minutes, which is approximately 358 hours, which is approximately 14.9 days. And I want to make sure to add a caveat that these numbers are only accounting for work that our students have put in informal competition settings. This doesn't account for the fact that every student meets with me each week for an hour. We have a team practice that is scheduled for only an hour, but oftentimes becomes much closer to 2 hours. And we do a number of practice debates over weekends and during the weekdays when we can fit them in. And every student spends countless hours doing their research that prepares them to be able to deliver their speeches in these debates. So, never mind that those 358 hours don't even account for all of the preparation time that we spend at a tournament and only accounts for the active time within a debate, there's likely a couple hundred additional hours being spent by the team preparing for those tournaments before we even arrive on site or start a tournament in an online form. And I think that this is useful to help visualize something that you likely have gotten to see pieces of in terms of our updates in the Facebook group, on the website, from your various students, children, partners, friends, etc., whoever happens to be on the team. And I think that that is so important in a moment where our students are really having to deal with a lot of things that can distract them from their academic work. And yet we show up weekend in, weekend out, and put in an enormous amount of time being able to compete at debate tournaments. And something I'm even slightly more proud of is that the debate team does all of that incredible work showing up to debate tournaments, challenging their peers, getting feedback from their judges, while also being exceptionally talented students in the classroom. 9 members from the A. Craig Baird Debate Forum were on the dean's list last semester, which means that they had a GPA of at least 3.5. 3 members of the team were on the president's list for the fall, which means that they carried a 4.0 GPA for at least 2 semesters. And 3 of our students will receive the award of a National Debate Scholars at the upcoming CETA National Debate Tournament. And holding those two things together, I think, really illustrates how much amazing work our students put in, both in and outside of the classroom, to be able to shape debate as a co-curricular experience that is supplementing and expanding all of the brilliant work that they're doing in their classroom. To be even a little bit more specific with what kinds of rounds we have had across this season, I just wanted to put together a number of the highlights that we've had since our first tournament at Northwestern back in September. We've placed in the top 20 on numerous occasions. We've won a few tournaments, including the most recent District 4 qualifying tournament for the National Debate Tournament, where we also received 2 qualifications to compete at the NDT, something that we have not been successfully able to do for a couple of years now. And we did all of that while expanding the programming that the university's debate team does into a couple of different avenues. We traveled up to Minneapolis to compete against the University of Minnesota in a public debate the day before the football team played them, and we were also victorious. We hosted 7 schools for the inaugural Baird Debates round robin, which took place roughly in the middle of October. And that was the first time the University of Iowa has returned to hosting intercollegiate debate for a number of years now, and we're excited to maintain that tradition going forward in 2025 as well. And then finally, as I said at the beginning, we launched in January our 100 years of celebrating A. Craig Baird, or our celebration of 100 years since A. Craig Baird arrived at the University of Iowa. For anyone who might have missed that initial event, there is a recording of it available on our website. And I guess I will briefly say that A. Craig Baird was a professor in communication studies who did a lot of work to shape the activity that we do, i.e., college policy debate. He also made enormous contributions to the field of communication studies by training dozens and dozens and dozens of scholars that would go on to be practitioners of communication studies for decades. We're very, very excited to be able to spend this year through our weekly series where we learn little bits out of the archive of A. Craig Baird's legacy, as well as events like this where we come together to both celebrate his work, but also to celebrate the work that our students put into their debate season. Finally, or second to last, we are excited that this serves as the bridge between our regular season in terms of all of the tournaments that we do as build up to our national championships. This year, we will be participating in 3 national championships, starting on Saturday, i.e., just 2 days from now. Ben and Lily and V and Charles will take on the American Debate Association in an attempt to win our first title of the competitive postseason. In about a week and a half, or about a week and a half after the ADA tournament, we will travel to Newark, New Jersey for the Cross Examination Debate Association National Championship, where all 4 teams will compete to try to win our second title of the postseason. And then finally, we will wrap up at the beginning of April with the National Debate Tournament, where Spencer and Gray and Rose and Nate will compete to be one of the top teams in the country by winning our 3rd national championship. Now, maybe I'm being a little bit ambitious, but my students would tell you that I say time and time again that you have to aim high to be able to imagine a world where you can achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And so we're going to aim high. Every tournament's a new tournament. All of the work that we've done over this season accumulates to prepare our debaters to be at their most efficient and sharp form that they can as we compete against our peers from across the country. Finally, I want to extend a brief appreciation to our assistant coaches. Paul and I do a lot of work, but Natalie, Tessa, Taj, and Spencer do arguably more work to prepare the students to actually be ready for our debates as we go from tournament to tournament, but also as we do practice rounds, speech redos, and develop new ideas for the research assignments that we are going to complete. We would not be nearly as successful if we did not have the brilliant assistant coaches that we are able to bring to give advice to our students as they compete at tournaments. With that said, I have come to the end of the opening remarks. We'll stop sharing that. And we will now turn to the second part of our programming this evening. And I tasked each student with coming up with an elevator pitch that introduces you to the work that they have been doing or the work that they will be doing, given I suspect some of them might be talking about upcoming summer internships. Uh, in that sense, I am going to structure this part of our conversation through what we call popcorn style. So I'm going to name the next person, and then who I name will name the person after that. And we will just keep going through that kind of linked style until we arrive at the end of our team. So I will turn it over. Well, Ben, you're the person next on my screen, so I'm going to hand it off to you.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Okay, sweet. Hey, everybody. Nice to meet you. My name is Ben. I'm a freshman at the University of Iowa. This is my first year doing policy debates. I currently study computer science and mathematics, which is kind of a non-traditional, I suppose, major for someone doing debate. However, I found it very valuable personally because I learn a lot of technical aspects about things such as how to do research, but a lot of questions, more specifically relating as to what research can more specifically look like on a less technical level and what kind of consequences and influences different types of research can have are all questions that I've only really learned to even ask myself because of debate. This year's topic about decarbonization was extremely helpful for me. First of all, because it's a very interesting topic in general, but more specifically, I was able to talk about the research I did about various technologies for decarbonization, such as carbon taxes. And using that background knowledge, I was actually able to receive an offer from Carnegie Mellon to do research about computational decarbonization this summer. And I mean, that's just one way in which the things we research and talk about in debate can really shape our opportunities and how we're able to interact with the rest of the world. So I'm very thankful for this activity. It really means a lot to me. I'm very excited to see what we're going to be able to do this weekend and at CETA and in general within the next few years. I've been learning and growing a lot from debate, and hopefully that can continue to happen. Um, okay, so do I popcorn this along? Is that the memo? Okay, sweet. Um, it's a lot of choices. I'll give it to Lily. I'll give it to my partner Lily. Let's do that.
Hi, everyone. As Ben said, I get to be Ben's partner in debate. My name is Lily Severson. I'm also a first year here at the University of Iowa, currently studying my BBA in economics as well as a BS in political science. And I went up Ben by saying this is my first year doing debate, period. So We both took a jump into policy debate together, but I've learned so much. Like I did a speech in high school, but like I thought it was like hard, but like it wasn't. Then I did debate, and I know really what hard work is now. The amount of research that we've done, the friendships, like I like it's hard to put into words how fundamental and transformative debate has been in my college career. It is like the thing I do more than homework. I love it more than school. Like it is like I love it so much. I can't even describe it, but I hold down me and Ben hold down the policy side of policy debate. We argue a carbon tax in the affirmative. And so it's been fun to see kind of how that interacts with different versions of the Ks. And I've really like it's changed the way I've interacted with kids in class. I've learned how to better do research, how to better formulate questions to really get at the points that I'm wanting to ask. And it's been a really wild and crazy ride. And I'm really happy that they're all willing to put up with me and my really endless stream of questions. So, yes, I've loved debate and I can't wait to keep doing it and learn more because I have so much to learn. Plus, it's like a fun flex when you can be like, yeah, I can speak like 2 to 3 times faster than you can probably type. So, like, it's just kind of fun to see those. So, yes, I'm going to popcorn it to Spencer.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay. Um, Hi all. My name is Spencer. I am in my second year at Iowa, but I'm in my fourth year of college, majoring in linguistics and communication studies. I transferred from Minnesota to debate for Iowa, like specifically for debate reasons, because of the resources that the team offered and the program's history and tradition of excellence through the rigor and the lessons um, that I've learned, not only in college debate, but specifically at Iowa debate, I've found pathways to a number of career options that I'm liking to keep open for myself. Um, I think the first is that I am involved in coaching and teaching at a handful of high school debate programs around the country. Um, Putting in that teaching an emphasis on things like reading groups and helping students develop a kind of rigorous background understanding of literature that I found students really enjoy and that I don't know that high school always pushes them to do. The second kind of, I think, opportunity that I've had out of Iowa debate in particular, is that this semester I've gotten to work really closely with a professor in the communication study department, Dr. Cram. Gray and I, in fact, are doing an independent study with Dr. Cram, and that is a wonderful opportunity because we are getting to do it in an area that is not and probably could not be a class, but at a kind of level of rigor that I really haven't had in a class before. And so I think that those connections are really sort of invaluable. I'm going to pass it to Greg, my partner.
Awesome. Hi, hello. Is my internet working okay? Beautiful. Hi, I'm Gray. I'm a second year. I'm studying philosophy and communication studies. I came to Iowa from a rather small high school program. I was functionally leading a class there, and we had very little in the way of institutional support. And so when I first met with Paul and Tyler to discuss maybe a future in Iowa, it was incredible to hear about the type of legacy Iowa had built, the type of decades of institutional support that had been built, and the type of team culture and coaching culture that Iowa had. And that for me was a big draw to know I'd have a base that would support me for all I wanted to do in the activity. If any of y'all saw on the Facebook, Spencer posted a photo of us playing a movie in a debate round. That's just kind of the sort of impetus, the sort of support I've had has given me the opportunity to do, right? Explore creatively what argumentation can mean, what it can mean to engage in that way. So yeah.
You gotta pass it to
Oh, I
someone.
got popcorn. Nate, all you.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. My name is Nate. I am a sophomore at Iowa, and I'm from Iowa City. So what's it called? like really feel connected to the University of Iowa. And I really appreciate Tyler and the whole sort of Iowa, what's it called, debate staff. Not only just sort of the general support they have for us, but also I think Tyler especially has taught me how to sort of think about debate a bit differently than I did in the past, which I have been able to sort of, it just has broadened sort of not only what I think about debate, but also the things that I know, i.e., Tyler has taught me about all sorts of like critical theory that I find myself teaching my own students. I teach a school in Florida, and so it's very, very valuable to both for sort of getting hired and also in terms of actually teaching students to know about the sort of things that Iowa debate broadly, but also Tyler especially has taught me about critical debate and sort of thinking about debate outside of just the topic or just the sort of traditional way of policy debating. I will send it to V.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Vrithi. I am a double major in international relations and American studies. I'm also a second year at the University of Iowa. This is my sixth year of competitive policy debate. I've been doing debate for quite a long time and have a lot of passion for the activity. I have the most experience in critical debate. As Lily pointed out, there is a bit of a new emerging policy side of Iowa debate, but I reside in the critical section. I primarily read arguments and enjoy studying about things like settler colonialism and the way that expansion of territory and extraction of resources has kind of shaped questions that we look to explore under resolutions and topics. Um, in the future, I am looking forward to going to graduate school and potentially engaging in a career studying these sorts of things and like sort of expanding on the ways that histories of the past continue to inform the way that we act and think about things in the future and in the present. Um, yeah, the way that debate has made me critically interrogate and sort of think about the ways that we go about our everyday lives informs the way that I pretty rigorously engage in my study and enjoy a lot of my classes. I have found myself working with professors to do things like read through books and independently sort of pull through ideas that they intensely study with some of my ideas about the world and some of the things that I study. And debate continues to inform a lot of the ways that I think about the world and everything that I do. So I'm really excited to be a part of the Iowa debate team and continuing that legacy. I'll popcorn it to Rose.
Hi, my name's Rose Blicky. I'm a sophomore at the University of Iowa studying political science and communications. I kind of frame this in the thing I probably gained most from debate, which is that I've been able to learn so much about disability studies. It's an argument that I've always wanted to read. Even in high school and at Iowa, I can kind of access it and have the support to craft new innovative arguments in that side of the literature. Disability studies isn't often read in debate, so I'm very proud to read it and succeed with it. It's also helped me greatly outside of debate with my own activism. I'm part of the Students for Disability Advocacy at Iowa, which provides support and advocacy for students with disabilities on campus. I'm also running for the undergraduate disability constituency seat in the undergraduate student council. And it has helped me form a lot of connections and be able to be a research assistant on a project about disability and climate change, which I never really thought was a possibility and probably wouldn't have pursued absent support from my debate teammates and the coaching staff here. I hope to go to law school after I graduate and do disability law, and a lot of the skills I've gained from debate I think will be very, very important, and I'm very excited to continue kind of the legacy of argumentative innovation that Iowa debate has. Yeah. Charles.
Hey, I am Charles Sanderson. I'm a first year here at Iowa Debate. I am a major philosophy major with a minor in human rights on the pre-law pathway. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I debated at a very small school. I was a member of the only partnership from my school in the last year that the team was open, and decided to come to Iowa specifically because of our debate program and its openness and prestige in regards to critical debate. Moving to Iowa has been a massive change for me in regards to institutional support specifically. I came from a school where we had no coaching staff and where a lot of the work that we had to do, the research that we had to delve into, was on our own shoulders. And coming to Iowa has been a massive change in regards to the team community, not only fostered by our fantastic and very knowledgeable coaching staff, but also by our very diverse and welcoming team environment. I also enjoy disability studies. I focus on critical debate. And one of the things that I found really interesting about this topic has been talking about the way that disabled people can influence and are influenced by environmental communication. I would say that Iowa's openness to critical debate has only deepened my connection with my favorite literature base. I started reading disability studies scholarship in my free time before I ever started reading it in debate. I first engaged with it as a sophomore in high school. And I've tried to export the benefits that I've received from debating here at Iowa through coaching smaller schools back on my local circuit in Georgia, kind of trying to give back some of the Iowa debate goodness that I've received back to my community back home. And yeah, that's all.
Okay, great work, team. I always love that I get to learn things from the things that you're doing, even though I've been working with many of you for several months to several years now. But we are at our third segment in our evening's program. Curious to hear from our audience members what questions you have for the team, or possibly what experiences you might offer them as we are on the cusp of national competitions. Looks like we have a question from Steve. Feel free.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Steve Balls. I debated at Iowa a half a century ago. So this may be an elementary question, but what is the difference between critical debate and policy debate?
I think okay. I'll say my bit. I'm not the authority on the subject by any means. I think that I think a lot about this question. I think that the main difference is that critical debate is focused not purely on content, but there is also an emphasis on that is maybe a good way to encapsulate. I don't know if people want to add anything, but so we're looking at the kind of underlying assumptions and consequences beyond the consequences of like a hypothetical policy action.
I would also add that it's more of a focus on things outside of state policy, i.e., movements that exist external to the state, movements that exist for to prevent climate change that are not state-based or policy-based, and it allows a perspective of people who have been traditionally marginalized by state-based engagement to kind of unpack the ways in which the state performs forms of violence and how we can offer alternatives to that.
I also had something to add to that, I guess. The reason why I guess we all have that distinction, or at least a lot of us talked about that distinction, is because that approach, or to choose to have that approach, really informs how debaters choose to make arguments or choose to approach research and make the arguments the way they do. So critical debate often does play and bend with the rules and boundaries of typical policy debate in ways that can sometimes inform the way debaters think about debate itself.
Steve, I'll put it into context that maybe it makes in debate context for you based upon the time period in which you debated. The resolutions back in those days were almost policy statements.
Right.
Right? And then in the 70s, we switched from the 50s, 60s policy statements to resolutional statements that allowed multiple policies to coexist within an idea. Right? And so we're used to having either, is there a solution focus, a plan focus, or is there a resolutional focus? Critical debaters are challenging the idea that that is where the discussion should begin, right? And so they ask questions prior to the questions the resolution ask, or they extract from the resolutions ideas or values or ideologies, right, that become challengeable, that are form the crux or core of that plan idea, resolutional idea. I hope that kind of gives you a comparison.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's a good development.
I think that was an excellent first question. Um, Anyone else have a question that they would like to offer to the team? If not, I have a question. I'm curious, squad, now that we have spent really since May of 2024 thinking about clean energy policy in its many different forms. What is something you've learned from your research or debates on this topic that you feel like is an underexplored or not very common idea or something novel?
I'll go first.
Be a test afterwards.
Oh, what? Okay, I don't know what Paul said. I'm gonna go off what Tyler said though. Okay, so I guess one of the first big revelations that I kind of discovered through and with debate was maybe renewables aren't so great. We got introduced to this idea on the negative that they're called fossil fuels plus, and it's this idea that this thing we think of as clean energy really requires renewables, or really requires fossil fuels rather, at every stage, from mining to maintenance to construction. And so they kind of, from the very get-go, challenge the idea of what mainstream media is telling us about how renewables function, what their place is, and how they're going to make this clean, green future. What that led me to further down the line stumble upon was this idea of solar fuels. I love my solar fuels. We tried to write an app about them. The app is dead, but I'm still talking about them. Solar fuels are this amazing new technology that we're seeing emerge across Europe. And it's the idea that we can take the sun's energy and heat and reflect it into reactors. And in this reactor, we pull apart water and carbon from the airs, and we separate the hydrogen and put that hydrogen in string to the carbon to create a fully synthetic fuel that's carbon neutral. My pitch for these solar fuels, which, who's me, I'm picking this as the winner. But I like to think that through technology like solar fuels, maybe biofuels, if they become a little better, we could start to see renewables be truly green and clean. And so it's really cool to see problems and then continue to research and find potential solutions. You can come across ideas, but that's not, and issues and really fundamentally change the way you think about something. But with debate, it doesn't have to end at feeling sad. Like you can continue to interrogate those ideas and try to find solutions and try to advocate for them, but sometimes it doesn't fit within the resolution, but that's okay.
So what would be a truth that you think you've discovered, a way in which your thinking has changed from the beginning of the semester or the year to the end, or something that's been reinforced and you now have a deeper set of belief in it besides solar fuels? Lily. By that, I mean any of you can answer that question. I think that's a good question to ask. How has debate helped you understand and rearrange your world?
I guess let's start off. I feel like every week Like, I kid you not, literally every week my opinions on something's changed, and I'm so grateful for it. Like, whether it's through conversations I have with teammates or the readings that Tyler assigns me that I love but I hate too because they're kind of boring sometimes. But like it's truly like anytime you look, you can find new ways to think about things. And I think the biggest thing is that there is no one truth. I think that a lot of times there's validity on both sides, and debate really has only strengthened that idea that this binary that we see often in the news, that it's one way or another way or my way or the highway, is really a myopic and a small way to look at things because problems are so much bigger and it really requires conversations from both sides. And so what's really cool about debate is you get to debate both sides. You're affirmative one round and then you have to go immediately to being negative the next round. And something interesting is like I can confidently advocate for a carbon tax when we're affirmative and I think it's a good idea. But then also when we're the negative, like I can confidently say maybe it's bad. And having the ability to do both of that and critically interrogate from both sides and feeling good about the arguments I'm making on each, like it's just something people don't take the time to do anymore. But that's the only way you're going to find a solution is if you consider both sides. And so there is no one truth, but if you can find evidence and willing to stand behind it, it can be your truth.
What I was gonna say is something it's taught me a lot about is kind of the diversity of movements about climate change. Like, often we lump environmentalism together as a same thing, but there are kind of violent forms of environmentalism that, weaponize the idea of climate change in order to um, kind of reoppress certain bodies, i.e., disabled people are often seen as like, during climate disasters, they're seen as like collateral damage, right? They're seen as being too wasteful or too resource intensive to be kept alive. And so I think it really can kind of change your perspective on what kind of movements about environmentalism we should be orienting towards and what those goals of those movements should be. And the answer is not just one that is for a more environmental world, but for one that's for a more equitable world in like general.
As we're having a conversation with the alumni, what are some of the things that the alumni have brought to the forum in the past or currently that you use as aids to do your work or guides?
And I'm gonna ask you in a second to clarify what you mean by AIDS. But what I will say, just on a quick note, is we had former NDT champ Andy Peterson back for the reunion, and Spencer and I were eating dinner with him. And he told me the best thing anyone can have in debate is judge instruction because it's most bang for your buck. And I remember that before every single debate round. So I'd say Andy Peterson gave me some of the best advice that I still use at the reunion.
Yeah, I'd like to real quick double down on, I think something the alumni really bring that maybe isn't necessarily material, but something I still think is really valuable is just having a community of support. For example, it may seem a little bit silly, but it really does mean a lot when alumni are active in the Facebook group or congratulating people when they succeed at certain tournaments. That maybe doesn't, you know, make or break anything, but that sort of sense of community does feel very valuable. And it makes at least me personally feel like I'm part of something larger than just myself, where this debate team isn't just about me or even just about the people I'm debating with right now, but it's all about a sort of legacy and commitment to some of the values like, determining truth, um, such things like that. I just think that having that sense of community is really important, and alumni engagement is kind of the basis of that in the first place.
Yeah, I would like to strongly second Ben here. Coming from a school that was not only massively underfunded in terms of its debate program, but also undersupported, i.e., we did not have alumni or coaches there to support us. coming into a debate program that has such a strong community behind it is not only really amazing, but also really empowering as an academic and as someone who, gets up every day and thinks about, well, I have to research these blocks now, right? Knowing that there is a group of people that that we can find kind of follow in the footsteps of, who still care about debate is really impactful.
So let's imagine you were having a conversation with your parents or your guardians, and you needed to explain to them why investing your time, right, is in the activity is something they should celebrate. And the reason why I ask this is Lily's parents seem to be traveling to tournaments with her. It seem to be real cheerleaders for the program, but it's more than that. We go home as debaters. I remember being a debater, go home to debaters and talk about the rounds that we had or the judge that didn't get it. All right. So how is it that you are communicating the activity to your parents or guardians, and what kind of message, what would be a message you would want them to understand about this activity?
Oh, Ben, you go ahead.
Okay, I'll be real quick. My parents are almost like the foil to Lily's parents, where I think they understand that debate is something I value and something I enjoy doing. But very often, especially my mom's really like, Ben, you spend more time doing debate than you spend time doing school. And I have to explain to her that the value of this activity, it's not, I can point to a certain test score or a certificate or something like that to show what I've learned from debate. However, I think the things I do learn are more generative than that, where it shapes not just how I think about certain debate topics or policies, but just how I view the world in general. I think that because of debate, I can pride myself as a person that is open-minded, that can see both sides, that can look at different issues and figure out the things that are true, the things that aren't, the things that are somewhere in between. And I think that that skill is something that is extremely valuable that may not be quantifiable, but it's something that I'm definitely going to take away from debate. And it's something that's going to apply to me and how I live my life in the future, regardless of if I'm going to, talk about carbon taxes for a living or whatever.
Yeah, I'll second all of that. I think as I when I'm in the position of coaching, I often have to pitch to high schoolers' parents why they should say send their students to debate camp for a month, even though they're like going into sophomore year, and like why that is worthwhile. And I think that debate, in addition to, setting aside even all of the stuff that Ben talked about in terms of academic skills, um, I think that debate teaches us how a set of like kind of invaluable like just life skills, like how to research, how to engage with people, how to build community, how to like resolve. I mean, like we get to spend all this time together when we're traveling to tournaments, and then like on the fifth day of the tournament, it's like great. I love you very much, but if we have to have another conversation, I might just start to get a headache. And like Gray and I have a fantastic relationship. But like learning how to negotiate those things, I think, is super maybe under discussed part of what debate offers us. And then that aside, like in the more specific context of how have I, you know, like engaged debate with my family. I record all of our debate rounds. Like I have full videos of all of our debate rounds. And this summer, I was like, my project is going to be I'm going to teach my mom about debate. Like I'm going to show her all of our rounds and I'm gonna like teach her the arguments. And so now my mom like watches a lot of our debate rounds. I send them to her and she watches them. And she's in the Zoom too. So yes. I feel very lucky to have a supportive family in terms of actually kind of taking the time to learn about and engage with debate stuff, which I think is sometimes hard for people to overcome that like super high barrier to entry of like, you're talking really fast and I don't know what you're talking about.
So I'll ask my last question, and then I'll allow Dr. Snelling and anyone else that wants to ask a question. And then we'll close up. Uh, Iowa Debate engages in a lot of outreach, alumni, the high school level, within national organizations. We host debates for NPR, the governor's office, between other colleges and universities. What would you say is been your experience with these outreach programs, and what would you encourage us to move forward with? I need to know that answer.
Paul, say it again one more time. Outreach programs and what we think they're good.
Sure, if you wanted to reduce it to what is the good that we do with our outreach programs? What would you like us to see us continue to do, right? And what do you like to participate in?
I can answer this to some extent. I would say without the outreach efforts that Iowa Debate has engaged in, I would not have known about how amazing our program is. The being able to come in contact with Iowa Debate, um, for me, happened not only through being judged by some former debaters, um, but also just by the amount of like how active Iowa Debate is in the high school circuit, right? How like any time that you were judged by an Iowa debater, you know you will receive a good ballot. Um, and I think that that level of just youth outreach, right, just being able to connect with the high school circuit is really impactful and pulls people up from small, tiny schools in Atlanta, Georgia, and gets them halfway across the country. And that changes people's lives. It changed mine for sure.
I'll totally second that. Like the reason I am on the Iowa debate team is because of Iowa debaters who reached out to me and who I talked with, and they helped me out in high school for free. And like, yeah, that in no small part brought me here. And the second thing I'll say is Iowa definitely gives me the opportunity to, even if I'm not like actively trying to recruit anyone, even if I'm not there to talk to high schoolers about college debate, I mean, it lets me kind of go back to the debate community I'm from in the local circuit in Chicago and pass on some of what I've learned, right? Be a better judge than some of the ones I got. Kind of where I can give back to the debate community that brought me here in the first place.
I guess maybe I'll hop in real quick because I want to give a huge shout out to like our coaching staff because like I said I didn't do debate in high school of any sorts. And so I Googled, I was like, does Iowa have a speech team? Like maybe I'll still do speech. And no, they don't. But luckily that's a good thing. And the debate team popped up and I was like, okay, we'll fill out this random Google form and like we'll email like Paul and Tyler, like their names are at the top of the list. And like and then they didn't email me back right away because it was in fact nationals and they were holding nationals. So I emailed again, being persistent pays off. And I got a response back, and Tyler was real quick to set up a Zoom meeting with me. And I think we talked for like 2 hours, like that first meeting. I was like, it'll probably be like a 15-minute conversation. No, not with Tyler. Now I know this, but just that willingness to meet with someone who like had no debate experience. Like I kept sending him emails. He's like, can you tell me about your debate? And I was like, I did mock trial and I'm good at speech and think I'd be really good at debate. He's like, okay, but what about debate? And I was like, okay, you saw right through me. I actually have no debate experience, but he still met with me. And so just that continued support, like truly has fundamentally shaped the person I am and will continue to be. And like, I once told Tyler that I've grown. He had to put practice online 2 weeks in a row because of a snowstorm of Iowa. And I told him and the team, I said, where like I didn't get I'm used to a certain level of intellectual capability in any given week at school. And when we move practice online, I don't get my fill. And I miss my community and I miss talking to people and having these really deep conversations. Like now I need it. I'm like addicted to debate. Like I don't know how he did this to me with like talking and just researching. And it's just amazing to see the community within the team and the outreach and just the willingness to talk to people who like truly have no idea what's happening. Because then I came in, I was like, I'm gonna be great at debate. It's been a real wake up call. Not that I'm not great, I am, but there's still a lot to learn and just the willingness to talk to people, engage in conversations. I know I can text the group chat at like any hour of the night and or the day and probably get a response back with like, "Oh, here's the link to the book you wanted. Oh, I have the econ notes. Do you want to use them? Do you want to use my calculator?" There's just such a structure and support system that makes this activity sustainable. And it's just an amazing thing to be a part of.
That was really good. I will add that Lily has a running timer counting the number of weeks, days, months, years, eventually, that she has been in debate as a way, I assume, to remind her of how far she has come in such a short amount of time. And I suppose before I ask my final question, I want to just double check that everybody's had a chance to ask the questions that maybe came up during the bios or during the conversation we've had thus far.
Tyler, I don't have another question, but I do
Oh,
want to
yeah.
thank Paul and Tyler for engaging the alums. I have to tell you, as someone who debated 50 years ago, how much pride I have in hearing from these debaters that the traditions continue. It was the greatest thing that happened to me at the University of Iowa and set me up for 3 or 4 careers. So thank you for taking the time for outreach. I live in Missoula, Montana, so it's hard to get back to Iowa City, but it is wonderful to be on the Zoom with our wonderful debaters. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Steve, for joining us. I know that.
Steve, I'm sorry to interrupt, Tyler. Steve, Glacier National Park is my heaven. And when we drive up through there, we drive up through Missoula and it's just beautiful. And so I
Well,
mean,
I'll buy you coffee or a drink next time you're in Missoula, Paul.
I just now know that there's I have to stop in and we'll grab something on our way up and we'll make it a night.
That'd
Thank
be
you, Steve, for
fun.
coming.
So,
Thank you.
for my last question, I am curious. A number of the debaters, whether they referenced it tonight or not, I know have connections with high school, either circuits, schools, teams that they spend a lot of time working with. And I'm curious if anyone on the team can offer some reflections about how you've experienced your own growth as a debater based on the connections you've formed through your teaching relationships.
That should be a softball question for Nate.
I was unmuting. I couldn't find my thing. Um, for me, I think it takes it makes me sort of think deeper about the arguments because it's like one thing to just like know the words you're supposed to say and then say them in front of the judge, and then like to actually articulate it to a student, especially because they usually ask like why things are true. Takes a lot of sort of thinking about the specific arguments that we're making. Especially like I kind of talked about at the beginning, like I've been trying to teach in more sort of different domains than I specifically debated in high school. Like in high school, I was just sort of a policy debater, and so having to sort of think deeper about the arguments than I maybe have given them time, etc. To be able to both just like let the students know what they have to say, but also like have them actually understand it takes a lot of like I think really helps me actually like learn a lot more than I did before.
I think the second thing that, in addition to all the things that Nate said, or like a second insight that I have is that it's made me think a lot about like curriculum planning and how to like build like a good educational scaffold for students. So like when I'm like today, I was working on building a series of like readings that are foundational in a particular academic field that my students want to like get deeper into for their upcoming nationals. And thinking about, okay, we're gonna read, which piece are we gonna read first and why? Thinking about like what has connections to what they already know, and then how can we like build from there? What are the questions that I want them to focus on in each reading that will lead them towards like a deeper understanding of the material? So having to think about that like from the perspective of not just like how are you going to win this debate, but also how do I plan curriculum? How do I think about like helping students like build new lenses through which to think about the world has been great for me, I think.
Yeah, the both of those are really good pieces of insight in terms of, at least for me, I know that when I flip sides from being a debater to being a coach, there are all of these moments where you hear your coach's advice starting to click and sit in a deeper way than maybe you got when you were just trying to refine the art of your own competitive kind of debate skills. I noticed that one of our assistant coaches was able to join us, and so I don't necessarily want to point her or put her on the spot, but I am kind of curious, Natalie, how you've grown in terms of the time, or given the time that you've gotten to work with the team. For context, Natalie is a recent recipient of a Master's of Arts in Communication Studies from the University of Wyoming. And so she did both being a graduate student and being an assistant coach at the same time. And I am curious what insights you might have to share about how that has helped you think both about your own coaching, but also about, the broader things you're learning, you're teaching, your scholarship.
Oh, Natalie, I think your audio disconnected. I don't know why.
That's the standard, turn it off and turn it on again, and it will work. We call that technology, and that's how we fix our computers.
Oh, wait, now it works? Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, so obviously, there's a huge element of like how debate teaches you a lot of what you need in order to get through your master's program in ways that other people may not, because thinking through your master's program is very different from your bachelor's degree, wherein it's just taking tests and filling out yes, no, is this true, is this false. With your master's program, it's a lot more of like formalized curiosity, wherein you start with a question and then you figure out, sort of operationalize how to answer that question, how to test that question from different perspectives. And debate really teaches you the skills to do that. And when it comes to how the master's program teaches you how to be a coach, I think that uh, it really comes down to, like, it teaches you all the different ways in which you can test your ideas. So it'll give you like, well, you can test your ideas this way. You can do this kind of study. You can content analyze rounds. You can do an experiment. You can teach one class via this method and another class via this method. You can, you should probably start by reading a whole bunch of books about teaching and pedagogy, and then try to kind of consolidate what you've learned, and then you kind of like come up with a whole bunch of different ideas. So it's really, like regardless of what you get your master's degree in, at the end of the day, it's learning how to test your ideas in a very sort of formalized scientific way. And when I say scientific, I mean not just in a quantitative like scientific method, but in a very formalized way wherein you learn a whole bunch of different ways to test your ideas, and from there you're able to apply that throughout life. You're no longer just kind of like doing things off the cuff. You're more so learning how to learn, and you're just like you're noticing, hey, every time I do things this way, it never works out. Well, when did it work out? Oh, that one time when I did it this way, it worked out. What made it work out that one time? Oh, it's because I did it this way. Okay, how can I get myself to do it more that way? So it's about training yourself to think in new and more, I guess, intellectually rigorous ways. And I think debate really sets you out for that. And I think that the master's program really sort of completes the process. I don't know if I answered the question. I don't know if there's a follow-up question. Thank you. Love the snaps.
No, I think that was a great answer in terms of hitting on the ways graduate school trains you to analyze a field, reciprocally trains you to help your students analyze the things that they're creating and the arguments that their opponents are making. I think that was great, and I think it potentially brings us to a nice conclusion moment where we can be thankful that we got to spend an hour together listening to our brilliant students talk about how debate has shaped them, think through how they're translating those ideas for different constituencies, and for the legacy of the A. Craig Baird Debate Forum as something that really crosses generations. Paul, unless you have something else, I think we are at a great point where we can send people along to their evening plans.
Thank you, debaters. Thank you, Dr. Snelling. Thank you, alumni and friends of the program. We look forward to giving you good news at the end of ADA, at the CETA Nationals, and the NDT. Let's go Hawks!